In this lecture, we're going to look at the power of self-reliance. Now, when we say the power of self-reliance, what do we mean by that? This power is a psychological power. When you are not reliant on other people, when you support yourself financially, when you make your own decisions independently, the amount of personal power you feel, the amount of freedom that you feel is unlimited. And this is a problem with a lot of aspects of our modern culture where we're getting support from the government, or we're getting support from our families, or we're getting support from people. We get used to having this support and we use it as a crutch, whether that means like financial support or whether this means emotional support. One thing that a lot of the great teachers throughout history have told us, and we have some quotes here from Buddha, from Ralph Waldo Emerson, from Jesus. They said similar things about the power of independent thought, of supporting yourself, and of being independent. Okay? There's obvious reasons that we want to be independent in terms of our freedom, in terms of the government, and in terms of finances, right? That stuff kind of goes without saying at this point, hopefully. But psychologically, we also rely on other people and other things, and it holds us back in a big way because it reduces our confidence. It creates more fear, thinking that now I need whatever it is that we're relying on, and we never can quite get to the next phase in our lives in terms of our self-actualization, as Maslow put it in his hierarchy of needs, right? In school, you may have learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, how once our basic needs are met, then the next steps are self-actualization and then self-transcendence and getting to higher levels of life. And we're not going to get into too much of that. But this power of self-reliance gets us to a higher level on Maslow's pyramid in terms of living a life of freedom psychologically. So Buddha said, only when you reject all help are you free. And so that basically just gets to the point that I already made. You become free when you no longer rely on others. It doesn't mean you can't have friends and relationships and family. And it doesn't mean that you, in a way, you still need that interdependence, because as humans, of course, we're very, very social and we can't live in a vacuum. But I think what he means by this in general is that, we shouldn't rely on people too much. We shouldn't need them, especially when it comes to, I think, work and finances, because it kind of makes a beggar out of us, right? We need help getting a job. We need help from the government because we can't pay our bills. We need to learn how to support ourselves and our families, and then you can feel independent, and then you can feel the energy knowing that you are capable. You're the one who's doing it. You have the power to take care of yourself, and it has a big psychological effect. Emerson said in his book, Self-Reliance, he said the original man is a happy man. That's a paraphrase. And basically what he's saying is that when we make our own decisions, we have our own thoughts, not the thoughts of our political leaders or of the culture or of society. When we're the ones who are choosing our own directives, who we want to be, where we want to live, who we want to love, what work we want to do, there's an amazing empowerment and freedom from having your own original thoughts. And this is one of the problems with our modern culture, because we watch so much television, we consume so much information from the news media and the internet and elsewhere, that we're becoming less and less original. We're kind of regurgitating these ideas and memes. A meme, right, is an idea or a notion that is spread throughout different mediums. That means in books, in television, in conversations, this idea that gets spread around and continues. It's not our idea anymore. It's like in politics, we have this narrative in the United States where we have two political parties. You're either a Democrat or a Republican. You're either a conservative or a liberal. And then, of course, that means you're put into this box where you think a certain way. It's a totally false set of choices. And all of a sudden we have, these whole debates and conversations and all the articles in the news, and basically a whole generation or two of us just thinking in these very limited ways, in these very limited set of choices. And of course, this would kind of go against what Buddha would say, what Emerson would say, and what Jesus would say, probably, right? That we are living our own lives. We need to be the ones to choose how we want to live. And at first this is scary because we get a lot of support from following, our peers and, getting a lot of feedback that what we're doing is good. Oh, you're a lawyer. That's a good thing to do. Or you're going to school. That's a good thing to do. Or you're starting a company. That's a good thing to do. Instead of really thinking about, is this really what I want to do? Is this contributing to humankind? Is this the kind of work that I really love? Most of the time we just automatically go into all these things because we think we should, right? So I think the point is, as Emerson put it, to be original and to think for ourselves. And that goes a long way to empowering us and giving us confidence. Buddha also said the secret to life is to have no fear. Now, this is obviously easier said than done. But once we can identify some of the things that we're afraid of, we realize that they're false things. There was no reason to fear them. It's not rational. So I already mentioned the fear of criticism. Most people are deathly afraid of being criticized, even though most of the time they won't be criticized depending on the different decisions they make. And even if they are, a lot of times the criticism comes from people that we don't care about or we shouldn't care about. And it doesn't actually affect our lives. We give it power over us. We think, oh, my colleague or my friend doesn't agree with what I did, or my parents don't support what I'm doing. And they have so much psychological power over us. As human beings, we value other human beings' opinions so much that we let it dictate who we are and what we do with our lives, which, if you take a step back and think about it, is absolutely crazy. That people are basically throwing away their dreams because people that don't even know them or don't really know their heart, even in the case of family members like your parents, they're holding you back because they don't agree. And in many cases, those people that are holding you back, they're actually doing it out of love, they think, because they want you to be safe, but really it's their own fears that are being projected onto you. So it's like we scare each other. If I say you should be careful, you should be worried about this, or this, all of a sudden now you have all these ideas about things that you should be afraid of, and then the fear spreads around. And it's the exact opposite when you spend time around really optimistic and high energy people with a lot of confidence. You start to feel like what you're doing is going to work, it's going to succeed, and that your ideas have merit. You should be living the life you want to. You listen to my course, you read books about motivation, you go out there into the world and you do the things you want to do, and you realize, wow, this wasn't really that hard once I learned to let go and expect success rather than fearing failure. So Buddha said the secret to life is to have no fear, and we need to learn how to do that. And it's hard. There's a lot of ways to do it. One of the ways, as I've already alluded to, is to try to spend time around people that are positive, get rid of negative people. One of the ways is to realize that, fearing criticism is not rational. It doesn't actually hold you back. It's all in your mind. And one of the things that Seneca, the ancient Roman Stoic philosopher, and a lot of the Stoics, the Greeks, and the philosophers back in Rome and Greece, a couple thousand years ago, their solution to living life without fear and to living a life of happiness was to basically realize that even the worst case scenarios that could happen to you aren't really that bad. Like a lot of the things that we're afraid of, as Mark Twain said, they don't really happen anyway. They don't really happen anyway. We're just afraid, and then it doesn't happen. But the Stoics, they thought, well, imagine losing all your money, or having a disease, or having to start over again, whatever the thing is that we're totally afraid of, and it's holding us back from living the life that we want. You realize that even if that happened, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, really. I mean, you're still alive. Okay, so you got to start over without any money, but you tried the thing that you wanted to try. You were actually doing the thing you wanted to do. You wouldn't have any regrets looking back on that, and you probably learned a lot. In most cases, you'll meet a lot of new people. You'll make new friends, and when you live the life that is truly the one that you want, you're going to be meeting people that are like you. You're going to be going to places that are the places that you want to go to. There's all these synergies that happen when you are choosing things for the right reason for yourself. Right? Not for reasons that other people have given to you. And that helps us to live without fear. Projecting all of the things that could go wrong, and instead of being afraid of those, thinking, well, if that happens, I accept it. You just accept all the risks. You just accept that maybe you'll lose your money if you start that business, but you have to do it anyway. You accept that, maybe your kid's going to get hurt if you have a child and you're afraid of them going out on their own or trying that sport or moving to that country. You accept the risk and you accept all the worst things that could happen. Maybe people are going to get injured. Maybe people are going to get sick. Maybe you are going to lose money. But in the big picture, in the grand scheme of things, it's much riskier to do nothing and to continue living this life of mediocrity or, in many cases, of depression. There's really nothing to fear. And this was FDR's point, right? Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president of the United States during the Great Depression, when he said there's nothing to fear but fear itself, because fear itself is one of the biggest limiting factors in human psychology, and it takes practice. But once you learn to visualize and accept a lot of worst case scenarios, all of a sudden you've faced them already. You've faced them in your mind without having to face them in real life, and it allows you to move forward. Okay? And finally, Jesus said, give no thought to the morrow. Right? Don't worry about the future. We will meet the future with the same tools with which we met today. Think about in the past when you've been afraid about the future. Maybe you're afraid of going to college, or maybe you're afraid of that new job, or maybe you're afraid of moving to that new city. But then after you did all those things, everything worked out fine, right? There was challenges maybe, and of course there's always going to be some sort of obstacles. But then all of a sudden now's the present again, and we have new fears, and it's the same thing that's going to happen again. You're going to meet the future situation with the same tools that you have now. In many cases, more tools, because of course we're growing and we're learning as time goes on. And so it really shows you how irrational our fears are as humans, especially today's world where most of the things we're afraid of don't happen, right? In the past, we had to be afraid of being eaten alive by animals, of finding shelter, of finding food. And so, because of evolution, we have these certain built-in fears that used to help us survive. Now they hold us back in a world where we want to thrive. And so again, understanding the root cause of a lot of these issues, we can kind of unravel them, and we can learn to move forward in our lives and get to where we want to go. And so now we're going to do a visualization exercise about living without fear.